Hi, Patrick. Nice to meet you. Welcome.
Thank
And
you, Joseph.
thanks for joining me today. To start things off, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and your carnivore journey? How did it all started for you?
Oh my God, you're asking me to tell you a little bit. Oh, well, I think my carnivore journey started basically with a journey in nutrition, right? In health in general, and it kind of eventually led me to carnivore. But there's been a lot of stages before I turned carnivore. So basically, we gotta roll back to, I guess, about 2009. I used to live in Thailand. I lived in Thailand for about 11 years. I started off as a dive instructor there. I've got lots of other things that I did, and probably in the course of our interview, I might talk about them. But anyway, in 2009, I was doing a lot of Thai boxing. I've never been like a fighter. I've never been in the ring other than training, but I really enjoy that type of high intensity exercising, and I don't know, I like kickboxing. I'm not a violent person whatsoever, but I do like that type of exercise. Anyway, I did a lot of Thai boxing, and I started to realize, because by then I was, well, I was saying 2000, I was about 35 years old. I started to notice that my recovery was really lacking, or lagging, I should basically say. Yeah, it just took me a while to just recover from training sessions. And that kind of goes to show I was so not in touch with nutrition that I didn't realize that it could have to do anything with the food that I was eating. And at the time, I would just eat basically anything. Now, I've never necessarily been a junk food person. I know that in the States, there's, of course, you got all the fast food restaurants everywhere and people eat a lot of junk food. Europe is a little bit the same, especially probably about 20 years ago. So and in my childhood, it was way less, but I didn't grow up necessarily with healthy food, if you wish. So when I lived in Thailand, I would just eat anything. As long as it was palatable, I would eat it. And I mean, let's be clear, Thai food is good as well. So I would eat a lot of Thai food, but I would also eat a lot of international food. So I was training, I was Thai boxing, and I wasn't really recovering. And then through a friend of mine, I got introduced into nutrition. Well, yeah, I got introduced into nutrition. She gave me this book, Nutrition for Dummies. There's this whole range of books called the For Dummies books, anything, sewing for dummies, whatever you want, probably also podcasts for dummies. And she gave me this book, Nutrition for Dummies. And for the first time in my life, I started reading up about nutrition. I started to read about proteins and fats and carbohydrates and the effect nutrition has on your body. And I started to kind of realize, like, okay, so what is most likely happening is that I'm just not feeding my body properly, in the sense that I would recover from my Thai boxing sessions properly. So that was kind of how it got ignited. Now, nothing really changed at the time necessarily, but that is at least my first introduction into nutrition. Now, about maybe a year later, I guess, 2010, I met the mother of my son. We separated a long time ago already, but that's when I met her. And when she came to Thailand, I met her there, and she was already into what you can call holistic health. So she studied traditional Chinese medicine. She was an acupuncturist, and she was, oh yeah. So what I was doing at the time is I was downing 1.5 liters of full fat milk every day. Because I'm from Holland. We grew up with a lot of milk and basically dairy products. And I would drink heaps of milk, like peanut butter sandwiches and milk was my go-to meal. I love that. So she looked at me, she's like, man, you are drinking a lot of milk. This is not very healthy. And I was like, oh, of course, milk is healthy. It's full of calcium. You get strong bones. Not because I knew this from a nutrition point of view, but because the marketing had done its job. And this is what I'd see on TV. You drink your milk, you get strong bones because it's full of calcium. And she was like, well, it could be slightly different with milk. So she started kind of telling me about how milk is actually intended to raise a small calf to a massive cow. And that, yes, we as humans, we also drink milk, but we drink breast milk when we're a baby to grow pretty fast. And then eventually we stop the milk. And there's no other species that would drink milk as an adult. And I was like, okay, yeah, well, that kind of makes sense. So she slowly, this is kind of an example how she slowly got me to think about my food choices. Now, she was already, I can't remember if she was vegan, but she was at least mostly vegetarian at the time. So she kind of got me into the vegetarian mindset. And we started eating more greens, less junk. She fell pregnant. So I knew I was going to become a father. In the years before, I'd been running beach bars we were on this tiny island in Thailand. I was running beach bars on the island, and I was drinking quite a bit. I mean, I don't believe I've ever been an alcoholic, but the amount of alcohol I drank was definitely the equivalent of what an alcoholic would drink. But I became a little bit more adult because I knew my child was, I knew my child was going to come there. I was going to have a kid. So I was like, okay, I need to be a little bit more like adult-like. So I stopped drinking and I started to look more into my nutrition as well. And then with her help, started to eat more whole foods. Now, around the same time, good friends of hers, a couple, they were really into raw food, really like hardcore raw foodies. They would only eat raw food. They would eat these big salads. They would cut them tiny, because otherwise you could basically just not eat them. There was too much fiber. And I got to speak to them. They came on holiday to Thailand. They came to visit us, and they kind of introduced us into raw food, vegan. And in the beginning, I was like, whoa, what are you guys doing? Why? But they were very well educated, and they really managed to explain it to me, not even like the vegan kind of side of things from an ethical point of view, which I came to realize more later, but more from a nutritional point of view. And they were like, well, if you heat up your food, you destroy nutrients. Well, you probably know how the raw food people think. You know, you heat your food above a certain degree. I think it's 38 or 40 degrees Celsius. And then it starts to denature the food, and then you lose nutrients. And they had this beautiful story about this. And I was like, oh my God, this is, yeah, I see what you mean. So I joined them, or I became, together with my partner at the time, we became raw foodies. I don't remember if we were all day, every day raw foodies, but we definitely believed that raw food was the way forward. The whole story worked out for us. We totally bought it. Not that they tried to manipulate us, but we totally understood them. They also introduced us into what I came to realize later is like the vegan Bible, which is called the China Study. I don't know if you're familiar with that book. If you're not, it's quite an interesting read. Basically, for those who aren't familiar with it, the story goes, well, not the story, the book goes, it's written by some big professor somewhere in American university who did a study in China, and where he basically saw that the more meat certain Chinese were eating, the more they had Western diseases. So he was like, oh, okay, they eat more meat, they get more Western diseases, so meat is bad for you. And it's so compellingly written. And I mean, let's be honest, we still have a lot of science based upon these correlations that I don't know if they necessarily make sense. I can give you a few examples of correlations that we could make that makes zero sense, even outside of the nutritional space. But I read this book. I didn't know anything about nutrition. I studied business economics when I was young. I then became a dive instructor and I managed beach bars. So I didn't have the knowledge to dissect whether a correlation was actually holding up. So I read the China Study and I was like, oh yeah, I understand now. Meat is really, really bad for you. Basically what I say is meat was the devil incarnated. It's the worst thing you can do for your health. So All the meat should be cut. But not only in my life, everybody should stop eating meat. Because I want, especially at least the people around me, to be healthy and happy. My dad had a heart attack when he was in his 40s. He's had a stroke. He's still alive, thank God. He's had a stroke since. He's got diabetes type 2. We're talking now, but already at the time, my grandpa had a heart attack. He died of a heart attack. So I knew there was heart disease in our family. And I also had to come to learn from the China study that meat causes cancer and heart disease. So it's like, okay, so if my whole family just becomes vegan, problem solved. Everybody happy, everybody healthy. So I started to preach, I started to be in a way, I understand. I thought I found the fountain of youth. I thought I found the Holy Grail. And because I changed my diet from a standard Western kind of / Thai diet to a whole foods diet, I started to feel better in the beginning as well. So I thought, okay, this is working. Everybody else should do it. So I did that for a couple of years, and I got really interested in nutrition. So I was like, okay, I want to learn more about nutrition. And I wanted to study nutrition, but that's a 4-year study. And I was a father to a newborn, and we were living this island lifestyle in the tropics. So like, I'm not going to study for 4 years, but I do want to help people with nutrition. And I want to know how to help people with nutrition. So I took on a course at the Institute for Integrative Nutrition in New York, which they do. I don't know if they still exist. I believe they do. They do these year health coaching courses, so you become a certified health coach. They don't teach necessarily a specific nutritional thought. They teach you everything, but they teach you mostly how to coach people. And then you, with your own input of nutrition and your own resonance, you can just, if you want, use that or not, but at least you know how to be a health coach. So I did this. I finished my year studying. And in the meantime, her and I had set up, so I moved away from bars and drinking and stuff. We set up a juice bar, and it was a super cute. I mean, I don't know if you've ever been to Thailand, but there was this little island and everything was like makeshift. So we got ourselves this bamboo kind of shack, if you wish, not even. And we bought 2 slow juicers and 1 secondhand fridge. And we started making juices because at the time, officially, yes, but on the island, you didn't really need a license. You didn't need anything. You just had a business idea and you just started with it, which was an awesome time to live in. So we had our juicer, we had our juice bar, and we started making green juices for the people on the island. And there's a lot of tourists on the island where we were, and especially a lot of expats, because it's a big diving community. Scuba diving, and the super chilled out island. So a lot of Westerners were living there. So the Thais never really got into the green juices. For them, that was a bridge too far. But the Western people really got into green juices, and they started to see the health of it. And then we had some kind of cooperation with a free diving school on the island, and they would send all their free divers to us. And so this business started to flourish. So we bought these 2 slow juices, and we had every day we would buy like kale and spinach and carrots and some fruits. And we made all these different juices, both fruit juices and vegetable juices. And our flagship vegetable juice was this brown looking sludge, which we called rocket fuel, because it would give you that same energy as rocket fuel. So we did that for a while, and that combined with me doing my coaching business, or my coaching certification, if you wish, allowed me to kind of start my coaching business on the island. And people who come to the juice bar, we started doing juice detoxes, like 3 days. If I remember correctly, I mean, we're talking 2012 or so. I think 3 days, 4 days, and 5 days juice detoxes. So people would come and wanted to do a juice detox. And of course, it was quite easy then to kind of try to talk them at least into a consult, and if not, into a coaching program, in which, of course, I would use my vegan thoughts, my vegan conviction to help them gain health, whatever it was that they were looking for. Eventually, the juice bar just became bigger, and we started to do food and fruit salads and nut breads and God, I can't even remember everything we sold, but it was all vegan based. So we had that for a couple of years, I guess, and then we decided to move back to Europe. She's from the UK, I'm from Holland originally. We had our son, we wanted to be closer to the family, so we're like, okay, we want to move closer to Holland and the UK, so let's move to Europe. And we moved to Ibiza in Spain, where I still am. We quickly separated after we moved here, and I think I didn't necessarily continue the vegan journey so much, because my background as a child, my family background is one of big meals. My parents loved France. I would go there summer and winter, and sometimes twice in the summer and twice in winter. And you know, the French cuisine is like lots of meat, and it's sauces, and it's rich, and lots of organ meats as well, and lots of things that you wouldn't eat in Northern Europe. You know, I remember eating brain as a child. Wasn't very impressed with it, but I tried it. But I loved, for example, sweetbread. Nobody eats sweetbread anymore, but it's delicious. So I grew up with that kind of cuisine, with lots of wine and beer and stuff. So when we moved back to Europe and her and I split up, I didn't necessarily continue the vegan course. I did stay mostly vegetarian for a while. I would eat sometimes some meat, but by then I'd been so conditioned to believe that I needed to eat an enormous amount of greens in order to be healthy, and that meat was going to give me heart disease and cancer. I couldn't really return to meat as a main staple of my diet, because I generally thought I would harm my health. So I continued eating mostly a vegan diet, but have some cheats here and there, because, you know, this is how I grew up, and it was not, that seeps through, doesn't it? And I kept on doing that for years, actually, for years, until, well, basically, no, I should say maybe until about Corona time. And then I started to eat, I think, once a week meat. And sometimes I would have some bacon, but still, especially in summer, because the summers in Spain are warm and they're long. So I would make big salads. My friends would know me as the salad king. I would make these massive bowls of salad. I would put some eggs in, and sometimes some anchovies, but mostly it was greens and carrots and tomatoes and cucumbers, and absolutely massive salads with lots of olive oil. And I mean, the way I remember them, they were really delicious. They were really good. But what I didn't understand at the time was that I had a real trouble with my digestion. I didn't know, but basically I was always bloated. But because I was always bloated and I didn't know what it was to be bloated, for me, it was normal. I didn't realize I was bloated until years later, and I did carnivore. I started carnivore, and we'll get to that in a second. I all of a sudden didn't feel bloated anymore. It's like, oh my God, this is what I felt the whole time. Whoa, I lived with it for years. But because I didn't know any different, that had become the norm. So, and the salads also really caused, like, my stool wasn't great. And I didn't understand. I mean, I was eating all that fiber, you know, everywhere, left, right, and center. Everybody and their mom is telling you need to eat fiber for digestion, and you need to bulk up your stool, you know. If we do it green juice cleanses, you would put psyllium husk. Can you believe it? I can't even believe I did that. Psyllium husk, more fiber, more. And my stool really wasn't good at all. It was, well, I won't bore you with the details. It wasn't good. And then let me see. So that went on for quite a few years, and that was kind of the norm. And I was getting older. My genetic constitution is quite skinny. My mom is quite skinny. My brother is quite skinny. Well, not anymore, unfortunately, if he's watching. It was really hard for me to pack on weight. It's very easy for me to lose weight. Now, there is a photo on my Instagram, which I proudly show to everyone, which was taken in 2017 or 19. It's written on there. I can't even remember, where I look like I come straight out of a labor camp. I mean, skin and bones, absolutely terrible. But I was eating healthy, wasn't I? Fast forward, 2023. Very good friend of mine who lives in Portugal and who I went to visit many times. He got introduced into keto, and he started eating keto, and he noticed that his brain fog and his kind of depressive thoughts started to clear, and he started researching more into keto and slowly got fed some carnivore videos. For example, I think the first one he watched was the Shafi video. Plants are trying to kill you, and he started to try carnivore, and his life just changed. He just started flourishing. He started losing weight. He started feeling much better. His what you could probably call his depressive episodes got less, because he knew I was into nutrition, and he also knew that I was into vegan. And in the meantime, I'd also had a girlfriend for a few years who was a macrobiotic chef. So we would eat a lot of macrobiotic foods. That was probably the worst time of me eating vegetables, because that is not just vegan. That is not very tasty. So he sent me this video from Shafi. He's like, what do you think of this? Because he is saying the exact opposite of what I had been preaching for years. You need to eat your vegetables. When I moved to Ibiza, I bought a slow juicer with me from Thailand. And I was always making green juices. My son, who's 14 now, he had to, poor kid, he had to endure at least 3 green juices a week, because that's how you got your vitamins and your minerals. I would make lots of green juices. So he showed me this video from Shafi. He sent it to me, and he is talking in this video. I'm sure everybody who's carnivore has seen this video at least once in their lives. He shows me this video, and I watched this video, and I don't even know if I finished it. I was just looking at this guy, and I thought, but this guy is insane. He's on drugs. I don't know what he is talking about, but plants, like the life force, is trying to kill us. So I completely ignored that video. I can't remember. I should actually look it up, what I wrote back to my mate at the time. But I must have said, like, yeah, whatever. Don't send me this crap, because it doesn't make sense. And then a few months later, I went to visit him. And he told me, he's like, well, I'm still carnivore. I'm doing really well. If you stay with me, are you up to join me? And I was going to be there for a week. Do you want to join me eating carnivore for this week? I was like, well, you know what? Let's give it a try. Let's just give it a try. I mean, it's 1 week out of my life. I wasn't a hardcore vegan anymore anyway, but I still had that thought of like, meat is gonna kill you. So it's like, okay, we'll do it for 1 week and we'll see. And he made amazing food. Now, he was very strict carnivore. So there was literally no plants whatsoever, not even herbs or anything. But he's a real good chef. And he made for 1 week, he made us food, breakfast, lunch, dinner, or I can't remember how often we ate. And that Joseph, that was the turning point. I went home. I flew home coming from Portugal, and I arrived home here, and I was like, my God, I'm so energetic. I almost feel like this is what it must be like to have ADHD. It's like I was buzzing with energy, and it's like I need to do something with my energy. Now, when I lived in Thailand, I did Thai boxing, as I told you. And then around the time that we had this juice bar, I also did CrossFit. that started to get really popular. And I really enjoyed that style of exercise, kind of where you push yourself to the limit. You do your push-ups and your pull-ups, and well, there was Olympic weightlifting, of course, and other things, but that kind of functional exercise, if you wish, that rather than just only lifting weights. I've never been, I tried it as a teenager, lifting weights. It's like, that's my thing, but I really enjoyed this. So with that in mind, when I came home buzzing on meat, I was like, okay, I need to do something. I'm just going to do, because I work from home, every time I get up from my chair to wherever I need to go, toilet, fridge, I don't know, whatever, answer the door, I'm just going to do 10 push-ups. And then 10 push-ups very quickly turned into 10 push-ups and 10 sit-ups, and then sit-ups and squats. And so I started to create this kind of little workout regime, but it wasn't really a structure to it. So I downloaded an app to get a structure in my workout, because I didn't have to get rid of this energy. I wanted to use this energy because I was buzzing. I also stuck to the carnivore diet, but I did it more kind of keto style. So when I came back home, I did start eating vegetables again, because, man, I'd been so brainwashed that I had to eat vegetables, that there was no way I could just from one day onto the other never ever have a vegetable again. I can't remember if I continued my green juices. I probably did. I cannot imagine that I gave that up, because that was so ingrained in me as well. But yeah, so I would eat basically lots of meat and some vegetables. And then over time, over the months, the amount of vegetables got less and less and less. And eventually I completely phased them out, and I would just eat like 95% meat, or meat, animal protein, because it's also eggs and sometimes fish and stuff. And I kept on doing my workouts, and that just completely changed my life. From this really skinny guy, and I still have a fairly skinny complexion. I'm not a big muscly dude at all, but I started to be, the advantage was that I was quite skinny. So whatever muscle I packed on, you could straight away see it. I didn't need to lose 50 kilograms first, like a lot of people who come to carnivore because of weight loss. If anything, for me, carnivore gave me weight gain. From my worst point, where I was 62 kilograms, till now I'm 78 kilograms. I gained 16 kilos of weight, but I still wear the same clothes. Well, I'm not still wearing the same clothes as in 2017. I've changed, but you know what I'm trying to say. It's not like my pant size has gone up like 3 sizes. I'm still the same size as I was at the time. So I know it's mostly meat, and I'm sure there could have been some fat because I was so skinny. I had to pack on some fat, but I gained a healthy type of weight. And yeah, this is basically, this was it. This was for me, and this is for me kind of the end destination. I've been on one side of the spectrum, the extreme side. Some say I'm on the other extreme side of the spectrum. I can see why people think that way. I don't agree with it. I think that the way we think about diets is very extreme, and the fact that we believe that a species-appropriate diet, a term that I learned from Shafi, and I love that one, that a species-appropriate diet is extreme. Now, that is extreme, right? To think that eating what you're supposed to eat as a human by nature, which we've done for hundreds of thousands of years, that is extreme. Well, I don't get that. But I see that if you eat the normal kind of Western diet, even if you think you're eating a relatively healthy diet, let's say you don't eat too much processed foods, you don't drink too much alcohol, you're kind of in the middle, I can see how you believe that a meat diet is an extreme diet, mostly also because we've been told for the past, 4, 5, 6 decades that saturated fat is going to kill us. Meat is going to kill us. And it's not only going to kill us, it's going to kill the whole planet because all the cows and the methane and the CO2 and stuff. So everybody has come to believe this narrative. And if you look at life like that, and if you look at carnivore like that, I totally understand that it's seen as extreme. But but the only thing you need to do is like put on different glasses, see it for what it really is. And that's what I came to see. It wasn't easy because I came from the other side, from veganism side. Now, I was never a vegan out of ethical reasons. I totally understand the ethical side of things. I mean, the way we treat animals is atrocious, but let's not forget the way we treat other humans is also atrocious. Like the shit that is happening in this world. How can we expect to treat our cows like the Indians, even though I don't treat them so well, but you know what I'm trying to say, to treat our cows like holy, but we're killing our neighbors. We as a human species, but this is a different podcast. We as a human species, we have totally lost the plot. And we see this in how we treat ourselves, how we treat others, but also how we treat animals. So from a vegan kind of point of view, I totally understand that, man, there's so much we can improve when it comes to animal welfare. But I still believe that we are meant to eat animals, mostly. We can survive on plant matter. We've done it in the past. There's countries that survive mostly on plant matter, but they're not thriving on plant matter. And what I've come to decide is that after I felt so amazing when I got introduced into carnivore, that I want to thrive. I don't want to survive any longer. I want to thrive. So this is it for me. This is the final destination. I will keep on doing this forever, because why would I willingly give up on something that makes me feel amazing? Surely if it was heroin, that's a different story, but we're talking about nutrition. So that is completely different. So this is kind of how my whole carnivore journey came about, and where I'm at now, and why I am where I am. I never really dealt with physical issues other than not being able to recover from exercise so well, which now, what are we, almost 17 years after I started to realize, maybe I should have a look at my food to improve my recovery. I recover better than I did at the time. So my recovery surely is a part of it, but I never dealt with heavy health issues. I had some psoriasis, which sometimes still flares up, but that is more related to stress periods, not so much what I eat. Other than that, I didn't really, I've abused my body in my life. I drank way too much. I smoked like a chimney. I partied a lot. I ate an absolutely crappy diet. And my God, I'm so grateful for my body. It just pulled me through. And now I'm giving it what it needs and what it asks for and what it wants. And I'm just reaping the benefits every day.
I think that's awesome, Patrick. I think it's very impressive, like how you're so in tune with your body. I mean, you were just saying that, back then you were eating a lot of crappy food, a lot of processed veggies. Yeah, I guess clearly what works for you. And also, challenge your own beliefs. Not everyone has that courage. I feel like you have a very strong mind, you're questioning your own beliefs when it's not easy. That feels very rare. And you're not doing it because of you're having any health issues or, but just being self-aware, I think it speaks a lot about your self-discipline. Do you think that China's study created most of the cognitive dissonance? I guess you mentioned some, but like how Popeye and the spinach, that played a role in me since childhood. It probably until I'm in my late 30s, and then upon discovering carnivore, I was like, what the hell was that? So.
I know, it's so funny you mentioned that, because I remember as a kid eating spinach and asking my dad, so when am I going to see it in my biceps? I was literally as a kid thinking that because Popeye would eat the spinach and then all of a sudden go, I thought that would happen with me as well. It's amazing what marketing does, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Since childhood, I mean, I wasn't eating veggies like since childhood, but probably in my teenage years, that's when I started. But yeah, because you mentioned like brainwashing, that has to be one. But what other like brainwashing did you like experience like out of that China study?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, well, first of all, of course, the China study, right, itself, because I don't know if you've read it. And I really appreciate that you say that I'm kind of aware, but, and maybe I am. I won't judge myself on that, whichever direction it goes. But I would recommend even people who watch this, who are carnivore, to just read the China study, because I think you can only make an informed decision when you know the whole story, when you know the vegan mindset, and not the vegan mindset as in the hateful vegans. And because we can talk about that, of course, they are there as well. And they are there with big numbers, but just like why would you eat all these vegetables? Why would you do this? What's the thought that makes someone like me at the time become a vegan? Because only once you have the full scope, you can make an informed decision. And if you then decide to be a vegan or a vegetarian or a pescatarian or whatever label you want to give it, because I also don't really like the labels so much, because now all of a sudden you have to behave like, when you're a vegan and you eat one piece of meat, you are not a vegan and you get ostracized, you get ditched by the community. But the carnivores are not always much better. They can be extremely dogmatic as well. So, because the moment you put a label onto something, you put it in a box. And now all of a sudden there's a rule system and you have to stick to this system. And if you don't do it, you're basically, it's like Scientology, isn't it? You are like any cult, you get kicked out of it. You have to stick according to what is framed within this label. So I don't even want to be labeled. I don't even want to say I'm carnivore. I rather say I'm animal based, because if I say I'm carnivore and I tell you on the podcast that I have a smoothie in the morning and I put some berries in, people are going to comment down on this podcast and like say something about me that you're not a real carnivore. So they are kind of like the vegans, but then the meat version of the vegans. So coming back to your question, I would suggest that everybody reads also the vegan literature, because so at least you can make an informed decision. The China study is a very good start because it's a very compelling book, the way I remember it. But then once you get into that kind of stuff, then you start, of course, looking up you're in a narrative. So now all of a sudden I was following, he passed away not so long ago, God bless him, Dr. John McDougall. And then there's Caldwell Esselstyn. And then there is Neil Barnard, I think is his name. I kind of, they almost feel like old friends and I start to forget their names. There's a bunch of these doctors, and then Joel Fuhrman. I bought a whole range of books from Joel Fuhrman, because he is talking about like not so much veganism, but a plant-based diet is the best for us human beings. Not necessarily, which means veganism, but yeah, plant-based diet is the best thing. So I started following all these guys. So if you listen to their messages for years on end, yeah, of course, that does something to you. And that created, how shall I put it? That formed my way of thinking. And that took a long time to get it out of my head. And yeah, I would say I don't have that anymore. No, I don't have it. I would say maybe up until a year ago, I could have that quiet little voice still in the back of my head that goes like, but Patrick, are you sure you shouldn't be eating your greens? Are you absolutely sure? But I don't have that anymore because I've been doing this now for soon 3 years and I've never felt better. And I'm also not 25 anymore, where you can just abuse your body, still feel good, and think it doesn't matter. But I'm in my 50s. If I was doing something that would really be detrimental to my health, wouldn't I be feeling it? Wouldn't I wake up tired? Wouldn't my sleep be affected? Wouldn't my recovery be affected? Wouldn't I get sick all the time? Wouldn't I have brain fog? Wouldn't I have maybe depressing thoughts when heavy things happen in my life? Because one thing the carnivore doesn't take away, that you still have heavy things happening in your life. All these things, they would have shown if I was doing something to my system that was detrimental. So I think I've passed the test of time, and I've done a blood test. I'm going to be doing one again next month, because I'd like to do it every year, just because I'm interested in the numbers, but also because, I'm older. Why not just get myself checked? You get your car checked every year, right? Why wouldn't you check out your body every year? You might wash your car every week, but it doesn't mean you don't want to check out your car every year. So I'll go to the garage. I'll get myself checked up. But the last time I did it was a year ago, and everything was perfect. All my lipids were fine, and my thyroid was fine, and I don't know what else they checked. They checked everything, and everything was fine. So yeah, that little voice of like, should you be eating your greens or maybe just a little bit? That is not there anymore, because it's got no ground. It doesn't make sense. I feel better than I've ever felt before.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Yeah, I was just gonna ask you, like, if you ever had a doubt, or like during carnivore, but that pretty much answers it. So looking back at the start of your carnivore journey, like, was there like any mistakes you made, or like how did you learn from them? How was your did you had like a oxalate dumping experience? Yeah.
No. Yes. I mean, again, my system, man, Joseph, I'm going to live to 120 years old because my system can handle an insane amount of abuse. All these years of drinking green juices, all this spinach and the kale, and any green leaf I could get my hands on would go down that juicer. The green, you buy a cauliflower and I don't know if it's the same in the States, but in Europe, you buy a cauliflower and it still has the green leaves around it. Even the green leaves that are around broccoli, I would save that all and it would all go in the juicer. Now, I cannot tell you if that all has oxalates, but it gives you an idea of what I was doing with my green juice. It would all go down the green juicer. So the amount of oxalates that I have drunken in my life is insane. It's probably enough for a small village to get oxalate dumping. I never had that issue. Never. I started carnivore that first day I was with my mate in Portugal. I've never had keto flu. I've never had oxalate dumping. I've never had any other skin breakouts. I have not had a single negative effect of changing my diet. I only had benefits from day one. I'm so blessed because I realize, and I see it now, I work with people as well, that people can go through a real rough time changing their diet to carnivore, and their bodies are really cleaning themselves out, and it goes with pain and headaches and detox symptoms and oxalate dumping and histamine issues and everything. I'm so blessed. None of it.
That's really impressive. I mean, yeah, just about every carnivore had the oxalate dumping, and you never experienced it, and just
never.
Good things from day one. That's amazing.
Yeah, and you
probably
say
even a miracle,
but in a way, it's not even like, it's not like I did it, right? It's not like it was because of me that I didn't have any issues. That was purely my body. I could have had lots of issues like so many other people. I've just been blessed with, this body that clearly can just take on a lot. I don't know how else to explain it.
Yeah. What was your favorite food, like, back then, before you were a carnivore? Because I know you mentioned they call you like the big salad guy, and then you would chop things this into small pieces. And then, like, compared to now, like, what is your favorite food as a carnivore?
Okay, so at the time, yes, it was salads, especially in summertime. So the moment the temperature dropped below 20 degrees centigrade, which is what, maybe 65 Fahrenheit or so, I would stop eating salads because it just didn't feel good. I wanted to have warm food. But because I live on a Mediterranean island, a lot of months are above 20 degrees. So the majority of the year I would eat salads, and I would make great salads. And if you asked me at the time, I would have answered salads, and that's what I still remember. Now, as carnivore, I mean, my favorite food, there's a few, but the first thing that comes to mind is ribeye. Ribeye, I started that from day one. It's the best piece of meat there is. Yeah, it's the best there is. I eat ribeye pretty much every day for dinner, which of course doesn't make it, in my case, a very cheap diet. But at the same time, I feel awesome. I mean, that comes at a price, I guess. You know, I can also feel crap, not spend a lot of money on food and feel crap, but I decide to eat this because I don't get bored of it. I love it. I changed everything in my kitchen. I got cast iron pans. I changed all my plastic cutting boards for wood. I got proper knives. I can't even remember now, but I changed everything around to make it as healthy as possible. And yeah, there's nothing more tasty than a ribeye with the bone. Because here I go to the butcher. I don't get it in the supermarket. I go to the butcher. I see the massive rack. They know already that I want the one with as much fat as possible. So they choose the best rack for me with a big fat cap, big 600-gram slices of ribeye, which would be the equivalent of, what is that, like 1.5 pounds, I guess, of ribeye. And fry that in cast iron pan. I make my own tallow, so I get fat from the butchers. I get it. This is, by the way, a great tip for people listening. So get fat, just fat from your butchers. Ask them to put it through the meat grinder just once, and then put it in the air fryer at centigrade 120 degrees. I don't know what it is on Fahrenheit. Just ask ChatGPT for like 10-15 minutes, and it just extracts all the fat without cooking it. And then you strain it through a colander, and you got your own tallow, golden, beautiful tallow. And that's what I fry in. So to answer your question, the best now is a ribeye with a massive fat cap, fried in my own homemade tallow in a cast iron pan on the obligatory wooden cutting board, of course, because as a carnivore, you need to have a wooden cutting board. Now, I love eating from wood. I don't like any more cutting on porcelain or on chinaware. So I got a nice big cutting board, a nice sharp knife. Heaven.
That's awesome. What do you think is the hardest thing about being carnivore? Like for me, like social gatherings, travel, and cravings in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
I guess, like, did you ever maybe feel pressured from the vegan community, or from the outside, like, to stay vegan when you switched?
No, I never had that because I didn't really have that many vegan friends. I think, again, because I wasn't necessarily an ethical vegan, I wasn't hanging out with vegans so we could complain about the welfare of animals. I'm not saying this with sarcasm. I'm just saying this purely as it was. So I wasn't hanging out with vegans. I was just hanging out with my friends. And some people would eat meat and I wouldn't eat meat, and others, everybody did their own thing. So I wasn't so much that there was peer pressure from that particular group. Yes, of course, friends of mine, especially in the beginning, they were like, "Oh, Patrick, what are you doing? Only eating meat? Are you crazy?" I had to explain myself time and time again that eating meat was not going to kill me, because the plants are trying to kill you from Shafi. Everybody's idea is meat is trying to kill you, right? So when I started eating a meat diet, people were looking at me like I lost the plot. So there was, first of all, they thought maybe it was something I would just do for a month. Now they realize this has become my lifestyle. But also, yeah, the idea that we have in the West that meat is giving us all these diseases and completely not look at the bigger picture and see the seed oils and the sugar, of course, and the pesticides and the herbicides and the air pollution and anything else that will probably give us cancer. No, it's meat. It's meat that's doing it. Everything else it's not good for you, but it's meat. So that's having to explain that, of course, has taken a lot of energy in the beginning. I've had all these discussions with everybody now, so I don't have to have them again. So that has calmed down. The hardest thing, I mean, what you mentioned, travel, of course, is not easy. You just have to prep. So when I travel, I take food with me. I prep it before, I take it with me. Parties, I tend to eat beforehand so that I'm not hungry, and I'm also then not inclined to, because, when you're starving and you're really hungry, you might be like, oh, you know what? Let's just have a few crisps. And even, you know what, Joseph, even if that happens, I'm not going to beat myself up over it, because this is what I said earlier. I don't want to be super dogmatic. If I go to a party and somebody baked the most delicious homemade apple pie and they're like, oh, would you like a piece? I'll taste some. I'm not going to say, no, I'm carnivore. Yes, I'll have a piece and I'll try it, because what do I do afterwards? The next day, I just continue my lifestyle again. This is also life. These things happen in life. I'm not going to binge on crap. I'm not, but I also still want to be part of society. And sometimes it's a little bit of give and take. And again, this is where I don't want to look just like this. I want to have an open view to the world. But you don't take me to McDonald's. That kind of stuff is not happening. Or you're not giving me alcohol anymore. That is not happening. There are certain boundaries, but I'm not going to say. Basically, long story short, I don't want to be too dogmatic. I know what works for my body. I know what doesn't work for my body. And having sometimes a few little things is not going to kill me, is not going to give me cancer, is not going to throw off my blood values. It's not going to disturb my sleep. I've done all the tests already with my sleep as well. Like, how much does my food affect my sleep? It doesn't affect me at all. So if push comes to shove, I'll just eat it, but I'll try to keep it as clean as possible, and I'll just return to my own diet the next day again. No problem.
It's really awesome. You mentioned CrossFit earlier. I think kickboxing and diving. I'm not sure if you're still doing these activities. I guess, like, how do you incorporate? Maybe let's start with like CrossFit. How do you incorporate like the whole carnivore diet? Like, do you eat before working out, or like do you eat after? Which one's like which one do you feel more benefit? Also, I just wanted to add, like, do your CrossFit people know that you're carnivore?
Okay, so I haven't done CrossFit in a long time. There's I believe only one CrossFit gym here on the island. I went there when I moved to the island 11 years ago. I didn't really like the vibe. I came from a really kind of family style setup CrossFit in Thailand, and this was a complete different one. I'm sure they're amazing, but it wasn't just really my crew. So I didn't return to CrossFit there. I'm basically doing my home workouts. So I've got nice 2 terraces here on my apartment overlooking the Mediterranean. It's really quite amazing. And I just put down these puzzled mats on the floor, and I've got resistance bands. I got a pull-up bar. I got a TRX. I got a mace. I got a jump box. I think that's it. I might forget. Oh, like an ab roller and things like that. And I just do my own. I follow a program through an app, which is kind of a CrossFit style program, but then without the Olympic weightlifting, because I just don't have space for that at home. But I just do this at home, like for probably 4 days a week, sometimes 5 days a week. So it's still that same type of functional exercise, but I'm just not doing it in a club anymore, or I should say a box. Before CrossFit people get really angry. I don't do it at a box anymore. I just do it at home. Now, I basically work out in the morning, and yes, I do eat a little bit before. I feel that for me, that works best. But what I mean by eating, you can barely call it eating. So what I have in the morning when I wake up is I have a decaf coffee. I prefer decaf over caffeinated coffee. I have a decaf coffee. I put heavy cream in there. I put a scoop of collagen, and I put half a scoop of protein powder. And that just gives my body just that energy in the morning to really get going. And I feel like that works better than working out fasted, basically on an empty stomach. But I could, and I've done it in the past as well. This makes me just feel, at least it makes me believe I feel a little bit better. Maybe I should do the test again and see what works. But I'm so used to it now. I wake up in the morning, I take half a liter, like one of these big half a liter glasses of water with salt. 15, 20 minutes later, I have my decaf coffee with the collagen and the protein powder, a little bit of protein powder and the heavy cream. And then I do my workout, and it works super well for me.
That's awesome. Yeah, great experience on that. If you had to describe the impact of carnivore in your life, what one word would you describe it and why?
The impact of carnivore in my life. One word. One word. Change. But a massive, I need to put a word in front, massive change. Because change can be anything, can also be to going downhill. No, a massive change. And why? Because I feel better than I've ever felt in my life. I feel like I'm now living in the best of both worlds. I feel physically better than I've ever felt before, even in my 20s and my 30s, because I wasn't really taking care of myself. So no shit, but I feel better than I've ever felt before. And I have the life experience of having been on this planet for 51 years. So I care less about what people think about me. I'm not as insecure as you are in your 20s and your 30s. And as you get older, you just start, well, at least in my experience, you start to care less about what people think about you. Doesn't mean you care less, but you care less about what people think about you because you have so much more life experience. I've gone through a really rough divorce. I've had my ups and downs in life, and the downs in life allow you to grow. And the more, I wouldn't say the more downs in lives, because of course at a certain point it gets a little bit heavy, but as you go through the motions of life, you learn more about yourself. You learn more about life, about, what are we, 26 almost. So yeah, about 8 years ago, I kind of started my spiritual journey. Now, I hate that word, but I don't know how else to describe it. But, there's so many people on their spiritual journey, and now they're wearing feathers and stuff, and they call themselves Rainbow Maca Sunshine and shit like that. It's nothing like that, but I've done my own spiritual journey because I hit rock bottom in around 2015, and I had to face myself. Well, probably maybe I didn't have to if I started using drugs, but I decided not to. So I had to face myself. So that journey over the past 8 years, combined with now feeling physically amazing because of my lifestyle, has been a total life changer. There's the word, life changer. It took a while. Here it is.
Very nice. I guess I want to add more onto that because, you've been on both sides, like, with the veganism and then the carnivore, even in the middle. I think you mentioned, like, here and there you would add food into the mix. Like also with your family, you've been through life and a lot of experience. Like, how has this lifestyle shaped for you, like the way you connect with your family or the community? How is your son? Like, is he also in sync with your diet, or does he have a different approach also?
No, he's not, Joseph. He's not. It's tough because me and his mum, we split up 11 years ago, I think 10, 11 years ago when he was really young. He's 14 now. She is much more still vegan. She eats sometimes a bit of meat. I understood. We're not really on doing so well. So I don't really know about her life, but he's basically living a completely different life with her than he is with me. He's not really. I try to feed him more healthy, but he is not carnivore. He doesn't really like meat. I try it. Sometimes he has a bite of my steak. He likes chicken. He likes the bland type of meats, but not like the meats that actually have flavor. So no, unfortunately, he's not. And it's difficult because he's 14 years old. I guess if I had started my carnivore journey when he was like 6, 7, 8, I could have maybe taken him with me on that journey. But I started when he was, 12 years old. And to then just say like, okay, we're only going to eat meat from now on. It just doesn't work with a teenager, does it? And I'm sure there's people who say like, well, you're the father. You just have to force it upon them. That's not the way I am. I understand some people do. But I also hope that he will find his way in life, just like I found my way in life. I hope that he sees what I'm doing and eventually, especially when he is an adult, thinks like, well, that old man is doing damn well. Maybe I should be doing what he is doing. So, but at the moment, no, it's not like, again, we're in Europe, so it's a different story than the States, where basically all the restaurants are fast food and it's hard to find a proper restaurant. We don't really have that much here, especially on the island. So 95%, if not more, from our food that we eat at home is made at home. So it's not a carnivore diet. It's not the best diet in the world. It's by far not the worst diet in the world. And unfortunately, he's not a meat eater like I am. I'm sad to say.
Yeah, that's still pretty awesome. He's still eating meat, which is good, not removing it from the diet completely.
No.
Yeah. Looking back at the journey now, like, what is the biggest lesson you'd like to share with others, especially someone just starting carnivore, maybe just like research and because they have some health issues? What would you say to them?
There's so much I have to say to them. First of all, give it a try. So try, because this is where it's also, again, I want to use this word, kind of like a spiritual journey. We are so stuck in our ways of thinking, and we see that everywhere in life. We see it on a political level. We see it on a religious level. We see it in so many levels, like, especially as we get older, we get more and more, almost like our bodies, we get more and more stiff and this is the way things are, and anything that's outside of that, I'm not open to it. So depending on what age you are and you're hearing this and you're thinking about carnivore, just keep in mind that the older you are, the harder it is probably for you to allow for that mindset change. But if you're open for it, you might be up for an amazing discovery. And you know what? Just try it. Just try. But try it not for a few days. I would say not even for a month, but 3, maybe 6 months. Because depending on where you're at now, your life most likely, I'm sorry to say it, will not change as quickly as it did for me. I was lucky. For a lot of people, especially if you've had decades of physical abuse by eating the wrong things, you're heavily overweight, you're super stressed, you got ailments, whatever you're dealing with, it can take a while for your body until it feels safe to actually start healing. Even when you eat carnivore, it doesn't matter what you do. Even when you eat carnivore. So when you try it, give it enough time and don't give up. Your body in the beginning, and not only your body, your mind will protest. It will throw everything at you because especially our minds, our minds don't like change. Our minds they're not there to try new things. And again, as you get older, it gets only worse. So see through your own thinking, sit with yourself and see what's happening when you try this. When you're in it for a week and you have the keto flu symptoms and you're feeling sick and you're feeling like lethargic and you're constipated, it's so easy to think this is not working for me. No, 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 it is. It is working for you. It is especially working for you. You just have to give it more time. You cannot say after a week, this isn't working for me, if you've been abusing your body for decades, because your body needs time. We're so used to having instant solutions that we expect to eat a steak tonight and feel like we've conquered the world tomorrow morning. And that's not how it works. Your body needs time. And there's so much stress and trauma stored in your body that for your body to open up, to accept what you're doing and to really start feeling amazing, to heal, basically, that can take months. And for some people, it can take like a year or longer. So don't give up. You cannot go wrong if you feed yourself the food that humans have basically developed on, that we've been eating for hundreds of thousands of years. You're not going to tell me like, this isn't working for me. Are you that one human being for whom it's not working? Yes, it will work for you, but you might need time. What? You might not need time. You are going to need time. So anybody who's listening to this, if you want to try carnivore, give it a fair try. 3-6 months. If you don't know what you're doing, reach out for help. Find a community, find a coach. And this is not a plug, but do find a coach, find someone where you can ask your questions when you feel down, when you don't think it's working, when you haven't been to the toilet for a few days, when you think you are a failure, that you can reach out to and say like, man, I don't know if this is working for me. Find that support, because it will work out for you. It will work. And you might need some tweaks. You might be that person, especially if you're like a perimenopausal or a menopausal woman. They can sometimes do with some carbohydrates. When you're perimenopause and you're still cycling, you might need some berries at certain times in a month. I'm not going to say you have to go lion and that's it. You'll find your own middle ground, but an animal-based, a heavily animal-based diet, I believe, will work for everyone, but it might take a while before your body realizes that this is it, that this is the best thing to do.
That is very great advice. Patrick, some future outlook questions. How do you see carnivore movement in the next several years? I guess you mentioned political landscape. Do you see some positive and meaning more people are joining in because it's healing a lot of people. A lot of better health improvement. At the same time, the negative would be maybe we'll face some censorship, some falsifying information, be prices going up. What are your thoughts?
Man, I wish I knew. I wish I knew. I'll probably be a rich man. I don't know. I really don't know, because exactly as you say, I see amazing things happening, but I also see, and probably it's the balance in life again, I also see things like counter forces happening. Which one is going to win? I don't know. I hope that we will find a way for regenerative farming sooner rather than later, because if we keep on farming the way we do now, I can totally understand, or no, understand is not the right word. I can totally see why the whole political landscape is trying to shut it all down, because there's a beautiful narrative. Not saying it's wrong, not saying it's right. I'm just seeing what's happening there. I think if we let the cows back onto the fields and make them part of nature rather than sitting in these massive factory areas, we might be more open to having them around and, of course, eating them, because eventually they have to be eaten as well. I see a lot of people healing on carnivore. I don't think there's any other diet in the world that has done so much healing for people as carnivore has. The fact alone that there are so many people from the vegan space or the plant-based space turning to carnivore, especially again as they get older and they started to get frail and have issues with the plant-based diet, they heal with carnivore. So there's a massive healing potential there. But yeah, we're living in weird times, Joseph. We're living really in weird times, and we're living in a massive, like, the world has never been as polarized as we are now. And also that I would love to have a discussion with you about, but that can be another day. But that affects this. That affects this because there's the agenda. The idea is like meat is bad. There needs to be tax on meat. Cows are like a big part of global warming. And again, I'm not saying it's right. It's wrong. I don't have the stats. I didn't study this stuff, but I see how it is affecting the way we all see the meat, how we all see meat. And yeah, maybe we're going towards lab-grown meat, but to be honest, I hope I won't be here anymore. I hope they wait another 60 years. Well, 60, they'll be 112 now, but 50 years perhaps, because I don't know what I'm going to do without my ribeye.
Thank you, Patrick, for those great insights. I actually feel the same about not wanting to be here anymore. You know, when that happens, you know, I don't know.
Very selfish though, because my son will still be here. But no, but I don't know, man. The world changes so fast, and there's so much happening, and there's so much anger and hate and polarization, and we see like social media with all the bots, and we see just groups of people going against each other. It's a challenge. It's a challenge.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, that'll be up for the next discussion. But Patrick, if people want to reach out or follow you, what is the best place to connect?
Well, there's a few places. That same social media that creates this polarization is also where I'm represented. So I'm on Instagram at functional.healthcoach. The same on TikTok, functional.healthcoach. You can find me on YouTube as well at functional health coaching. And then I am, my website is patrickalexander.coach. Now, I'm just in a kind of I could call it a rebrand. It's more like an evolution because I started this whole coaching just over a year ago, and just like with life, things change, things are fluid, things are dynamic. So things are slightly changing these days. So I'm moving away from my old brand name to my own coaching name, patrickalexander.coach. So if you're watching this, let's say now in December 2025, you'll probably get redirected to my old domain name. If you watch this maybe mid 2026, then this doesn't make sense what I'm telling you now. But yeah, go to patrickalexander.coach. You might get redirected or not, but at least you find the information about me. You find me on Instagram, like I said, on TikTok, on YouTube, and that's kind of it.
Awesome. I'm going to make sure I'll post all of them in the description. Patrick, thank you so much again for joining me, sharing your insight. A pleasure to have you. I enjoyed hearing your story. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joseph. It was a pleasure to be with you here and just talk about this again. So thank you for inviting me. Much appreciated.